Hello everyone. I think, all being well, we should be live now. um, as I always do with these things, let's just get a little bit of kind of housekeeping stuff out of the way first. Make sure that everything's working all right for you. If you could just pop into the chat for me, if you can see me all right. Seems to be working from my end, but you never know about these things. And if you can hear me okay. If the visual is fine and the audio is fine, and then we can all get started. That would be really handy if you can do that for me. Just to explain how things work from my side, there's a slight lag of about 10 seconds between me actually saying something or doing something on the laptop and you seeing it. So I'm going to have to wait for a few moments for that to come through for you. But let's just trust that the tech gods are with us today and that everything's working all right, and we'll make a start. So I've got some really exciting stuff for you today, I think. It's a really focused webinar today, just about auctioning your work online. And we'll be touching on probably some other things as we go along. But let me tell you, I'll just give you a brief kind of an overview of what I've got planned. There'll just be a kind of a brief intro. I don't want to spend too long over that, but there's a couple of points that I want to make about how this stuff works before we start, which I think will be useful for you. And then I'm going to go straight into showing you exactly how I run my auctions on my site. The software I use, how I go about promoting them, how I let people know that the paintings are up there for auction, what happens after someone bids, or indeed if nobody bids, that happens sometimes too. And I'm going to show you everything, the back end, if you like, of how the auctions work. So hopefully that will be really informative to you. And along the way, I'm going to have a quick look at the way a couple of other people run their auctions as well, because I think that will be quite informative because they do them slightly different to the way I do. We'll have a look at Julian Merrow-Smith's and Dwayne Keezer's, who are probably, I would guess, the biggest two names in this space of people who started off doing the painting a day thing, and the core of their business, if you like, is auctioning your work. So it'd be really interesting to look at them, because the way I do things and the way I would recommend that you do things is slightly different. Let me just have a quick check on the chat to make sure that things are okay. Looks good and sounds good. That's good. Everyone's saying things that... Steve, your screen went off. Oh dear, I'm glad to see you back now. Thanks, Judy. Oh, you got your picture in there as well. Well done. Cola, thank you very much. Nicola, nice to see you. That's a very cool picture. I take it that's one of your little ones. Everybody's saying everything is working and we're running all right. Okay, that's great. So the last little bit of housekeeping that I want to take care of before I start actually showing you some stuff is, welcome to Studio Cat, who is going to be overseeing things today and keeping me in check and running the tech, of course. He did all the setup of the cameras and the mics, didn't you? Yeah, did a great job of that. If you have any questions, this is actually what I was going to say. If you have any questions as we go along about anything, do not worry if it sounds like it's a daft question to you. I have no problem with answering questions at all, and it doesn't matter. A lot of you, I know, will be coming to this fresh. So anything that you think of while we're going along, just stick it in the chat. I will see it periodically. I'll look at the chat and I'll have a look, and I'll do my best to answer your questions as we go along, okay? I want this to be as interactive as we can possibly make it. So it's not just me kind of throwing stuff at you. You know, I think you'll probably learn more if you do have anything that pops into your head as we go along. Just stick it in the chat, I'll see it, and then we can talk about it, okay? Hello, Jane, nice to see you. Kansas, wow. Oh, is the sound a bit low? Christy says the sound's a bit low. Can I do anything about that? Let's have a quick look. I can turn, well, no, I can't really turn it up. I can't really turn it up. Well, if I turn it up higher than it is now at my end, it will start to distort. Probably the best thing is if you have a look at the video, check that on the video, that the sound is up full on the bottom left. If you roll over the video with your mouse, there's a little thing for setting the sound there. Make sure the sound is on full there, and make sure the sound is turned right up on your machine. Excuse me. have a little bit of a cold at the moment. And that's the best thing I can suggest, really, or put headphones on. Because I can't turn it up really any louder here, or it will start to distort and hurt everybody's ears, which would be bad, right? Oh, loud pops from Chitango. I must have figured out a way to turn that off. I think if you look down, okay, if you look down at the bottom right of the Chitango box, there's a little speaker icon there. Have a look at that and try turning that down, and that might help to turn off those annoying pops and stuff like that every time a message goes in. I think that might help you. Okay, so let's get going. The first thing I want to talk about before we go into running auctions or selling paintings or anything like that is that it's kind of my mantra, if you like, for everything that I do online. As we go into Threads, everything that I will be talking about in Threads has this at its core, and it's about building meaningful relationships with people. There's a famous bit of internet marketing advice, that came out some time ago. I forget the guy's name, I'll have to look it up, and I'll send you a link to it because it's a good read. And this guy says that if you want to make a living online, and I should tell you by a living, he's talking about a six-figure business, which is, you know, that would be nice, right? If you want to make a living online, what you need is, he calls them 1,000 true fans. You don't need a huge amount of followers. You see these people on Facebook and on Instagram with huge amounts of followers. My contention is that you don't need all of those followers. And in fact, those relationships, someone just following you on Instagram is not all that meaningful. If you can build meaningful relationships with people, then you don't need anything like as big an audience as that in order to start with, to start making some income, to supplement whatever it is you already do or already have coming in, and eventually move to a point where you can turn full-time as I have. It takes time and it's a slow build, but all of the best stuff in life comes slowly, doesn't it? And I think this is just the same. So whether you succeed or you fail at this, to a large extent, I believe, depends on how many meaningful relationships you can build with people out there. So you will see me do this a lot. It's something that I tried to do by default from the start because it felt right to me to do it, and it's turned out to work very well. I mentioned Dwayne Keyser and Julian Merrow Smith earlier on, and if you take Dwayne Keyser, he was the first one online with the painting a day thing. He invented the whole movement, the painting a day. Thanks, Dwayne. What a wonderful thing he contributed to the world. So for him, because it was a very new thing, and because he's a very good painter as well, let's not forget that. But he was, you know, the price of entry is to be able to paint well. He's an excellent painter, and he had a new idea that no one else had done before. So it was very interesting. That was worth talking about. Julian came along in kind of the people that started up quite soon after that. Julian also, excellent painter, very interesting because he lives in Provence. There's something very interesting about what he does. If you just try and join the painting a day movement now and have painting a day as your hook, it's not very interesting to people, you know, because a load of other people are doing it as well. So that's why I think if you can find a way to build a meaningful connection with someone, to build trust with them, give them something that's really useful to them, if you can, that changes their lives for the better in some way, then you start to have, you've gone beyond just the followers and likes and all the kind of the surface level of social media and the internet, and you've moved to something much more meaningful. And that's where the magic starts to happen, I think. Okay? So with that said, I'm just going to have a quick look in the chat and see how. Is it all right? I'm sorry, Kay, there's nothing I can do about the sound from this end. I hope it's all right for everybody else. Please just let me know if it is low. I might be able to push it a little bit, but I've got to be very careful. I'm going to really mess things up here, which would be bad. You all right, Studio Cat? Everything good? Should we move on? He says yes. Okay. So what I'm going to show you now is an auction on my site. let's get into that straight away. There's a funny little glitch that happens when I switch it over, but what you should hopefully now be seeing is a page on my website, which is one of my auctions online. Hopefully, is the sound still working okay? We had a problem. I think it's working all right. We had a problem when I did one of these the other day, when the sound actually stopped working when I went onto the screen share, but I think it's working okay. So please do let me know if the sound is still all right whilst we're on the screen share. So this is what an auction on my site looks like. I put, this one obviously is closed. This painting sold quite a while ago. I put up 3 images, and you can click on them and you get a high-res version of the picture. And I also put up some close-up detail shots, because I think this really helps people to see kind of, you look at paintings this way, you look at them from a little bit farther away, and you look at them from really close. Really close up. One of the things I'm thinking about doing actually is adding another kind of a view, which would be how the thing looks from a distance on the wall, because my paintings tend to work better from a distance than they do really close up because of the way I paint, you know. So down here, this bit I'm not particularly keen on. I think the developers who made this plugin haven't implemented this particularly well. But down here you can see that it's closed, and while the auction is running, you can see that's still going. And here are the bids that went on this painting at the time when I auctioned it. So let's have a quick look at how that looks in the back end. Now this is, actually let me go right to the beginning, to the dashboard. Let's go to the dashboard here. When you first go into the back end of a WordPress site, because my site runs on WordPress, and if you're thinking about approaching this, something like this, or teaching or building an audience online, I strongly would recommend that you think about building a WordPress site. All of this functionality down here, all of these extra things, are basically different kinds of modules of functionality that you can bolt on with plugins. And this one here is the auction software that I use, and it's called WP Auctions. So when you first go into it, I tried a bunch of them, and this one just worked the best. There are things about it that I don't like, which I'll describe to you, but it works really, really well. The basic functionality is good. You have in settings, this is like the main screen as you go in to set it up. In settings, you have some basic things that you can set up, like what kind of bidding you want to use. I used to do the simple bidding, but proxy bidding means that people can put in a high bid, and then it's the same way that eBay works, and their bid will keep being increased. The denomination, how much the bid is increased by each time, various like little settings that you can set up in here. Really, really useful. More settings than you'll ever need. I mean, our model for auctioning our work online is fairly simple. So let me show you again quickly. This is the page of, this is my closed auctions. So this is all the auctions. The reason there's a few there is because when I first set it up and I was testing it, they're all the same. The screen is off. Oh dear. How is it back now? You might have to refresh. Sometimes Facebook does glitch a little bit. It looks like it's running all right for me now, but I'm not entirely sure. Let me know if it's back now, please. What level of WordPress is this? I always have the latest one. So this is running on my own hosting, and it's you know, a WordPress. It's on my own site. It's not WordPress.com. It's not something.wordpress.com. It's my own site. So the level that it's on, the current version is 5.3 or something like that, I think. I always keep it updated. But here you can see, now what's interesting, I think, about this is the difference in the amount of bids that some of these paintings get. And I've tried to figure out why it is, you know, and then there's some of them, you know, 1 bid on this one. That was it. It sold, thankfully. 1 bid on this one. I really like that one, but it didn't get many bids. You never know, you know, and I don't think it's a good idea to be second guessing what people really like, because some of them go with only one bid, and some of them like, look at this one. A lot of bids on that one. And, you know, I never really know how that's going to work out. But let me show you quickly. Now, say I was going to set up a new auction. The business level of WordPress. No, Renee, I think you're talking about WordPress.com. When you have a site on WordPress.com, the way this is set up is you get your own hosting from a host, a web host. You get your own domain name, and then you install WordPress on your own host. Once we get into Threads, I'm going to be explaining. I'll do webinars on how to set up, how to get a domain name and set up a basic WordPress site. All of that will be covered. And there'll be a video, like a tutorial there, which will be done as a live webinar with questions, but will also be recorded. It's not as frightening as it sounds. Don't use WordPress.com. Don't set up your site there, because in the end it will cost you more if you want to use your own domain name and you want the added functionality. If you have your own site, it's a lot cheaper, but it means that you have to learn a little bit of tech. But the tech is not that bad. If you can use Facebook, if you can find your way around Facebook, you can find your way around a WordPress site. That might be a slight exaggeration, but not too far off, you know. So here, if I was setting up a new auction, I would just put the title in here, I would put the description in here. Have I still got the auction up? Yeah, so the description comes up, where is the description? Oh, here. So I just put, here I put, you know, the size and all that kind of stuff, starting bid and how it works. I don't really put any more than that, and I'll show you why in a little while. So you'd put your description in, all of your settings, your start price. I mean, this is really simple. It's just a form like any other that you can fill in, you know. The end date, all of this is really obvious. This takes a little bit of messing about with. You have to make a page in WordPress, and then you stick a little code in there. This code here. So this is the page. This is what I see when I build that page. This page, if you knew what the code was behind it, is this. All I did was I put the title in, and then I just put this little bit of text. Really, really simple to set up, and the thing just works. The downside for me about this auction software is it's ugly. I wish that I could have something that looked really beautiful, where I had a nice big image here, some smaller ones here, and that this, I could control the layout of this more. This is just, it's obviously designed by a developer and not by a designer. But I am actually considering getting in touch with the people who built this and saying, look, how much would it cost for you to build me a custom version? Because, you know, I think that would be a really useful, what is it, big lad? What is it? What do you want? Sorry, Studio Cat is trying to tell me something. Maybe he wants more biscuits. What is it? I don't know. I think it would be a useful thing to add into Threads. If I could also supply you with some tailor-made auction software that looked right. You know, this isn't tailor-made for artists, obviously. So I would like to be able to do some more about that to make that a little bit better. We'll see how we go. It might be horrendously expensive to do it, but maybe not. You know, it could be doable. It could be doable. And that's basically how I do it. A big part of this is the quality of the photo. Now, for me, I've spent quite a lot of time learning how to photograph work well. I'll also have, in Threads, there'll also be a tutorial, probably more than one, because there's quite a lot to it, of how to photograph your work well and then process the images so you can put them up online. But there are loads of resources out there on the web that will tell you how to do that. So it's not that difficult to figure out. If you have a decent DSLR camera, you can do it, but you probably will need Adobe Photoshop or Lightroom, something like that, and you do have to pay for that. It's not all that cheap, but it's very good. No, Jim, yes, I wish I could add CSS to that to make it look better, but the way this is coded, unfortunately, they put all the styling into JavaScript inside the code, so you would have to actually dig in the code to change it. And at the end of the day, I think it would have just been, it would take me too long. I need to paint, you know, I need to do everything else that I need to do. So although I am an ex-programmer, I think that would be too much. Just 2 seconds, please. I need to let Studio Cat out. There you go, big fella. I give it 5 minutes and he's going to be scratching to come back in. So that shows you basically how I set up my auctions online and what I use to do it. Any questions at this point, just pop them into the chat and I'll see them as we go along. So that raises the question about how, once I've got it in there, how do I let people know that it's there? The primary way that I do that is with my email. Now, if you were on the webinar the other day, for people who've registered an interest in Threads, I was talking then about the components of, let me just pop back onto the thing, the components of an online business. And if you're going to run something like this, what you're going to need is your own website, not a WordPress.com or a Wix site, because as far as I'm aware, you can't put auctions on Wix or Squarespace. Someone told me earlier on that there is an auction you can plug in with Shopify, but I've never used it, so I don't know how that would be. WordPress allows you to do a lot of other stuff as well as auctions, which is why I recommend it. But basically, you've got your website here, where you put all of your stuff. Let's say, for sake of argument, you've been doing this for a little while and you have an audience, a bunch of people who are interested in what you have to say, who you've built relationships with. The way that you contact those people is by asking them to join your email list. And that's what your audience is. It's the email list, the list of people who've said, yep, I'm interested in what you do. I trust you. I like you. You can get in touch with me anytime you like and stick something in my inbox. And I might read it, which is basically, that's what your email list is. The interesting thing about email lists against social media followers is the level of engagement is way, way higher. There's something about when someone gives you their email address, that's a sign of trust. You know, just following someone on Instagram or following someone on Facebook is, well, you know, anyone can do that really. There's no cost to it. Giving someone your email address, there's a possible cost to that. You don't want to be spammed, and that's personal information that you might not want to give away, understandably so. So those people will almost always be the people that you will build a better relationship with, and therefore people who feel much more comfortable about buying something from you if you have something up for sale. So the email list part of it is, for me, the one I use is this one here. And this is ConvertKit. The one I would recommend you start with is MailChimp, mostly because it's an awful lot cheaper than this one. I'll just get to the questions in a second. I'll just take you very quickly through this. And this is what I do when I send out an email. And this is why I don't put anything, I don't put very much really in the description on the auction itself. I put something in here. What I usually do is when I put up a painting, I'll also write a blog post. And I think this is really important because I think people really, really like to know the thought process that goes behind a painting. And it's an opportunity for me to share something really useful about, perhaps about colour, about painting, some aspect of what went into a painting, maybe some of the kind of the artistic and aesthetic struggles that I went through when I was doing it. All of that I put into a blog post. So I'm giving something to people all the time. I'm not just sticking up a painting and saying, you can bid on this if you like. So this link here in this email will take you through to a blog post. Let me show you, actually, we ought to be able to go through. Right, yeah, it takes you through to a blog post. And I'll tell you, whilst we're here, I'll tell you some other stuff in just a second, but just let me check the chat. What's the difference between Lightroom and Photoshop? Photoshop is just a lot bigger. You can get away with using just Lightroom. For me, because I make videos and I use Photoshop and Lightroom, I've just subscribed for the whole Adobe suite, you know. But you could get away with just using Lightroom. Lightroom is basically just for photographs, just for processing photographs, whereas Adobe Photoshop has a way more functionality, more than you would ever need. You'd probably be fine just with Lightroom. Another question was, can you speak for a moment about how you made the decision? Let me just get back onto the... Can you speak for a moment about how you made the decision to run an auction as a channel for selling your work? Ah, now that's interesting. That's a really good question. I'm trying to think back to the first one that I did. Do you mean as opposed to, as opposed to going the gallery route? I can tell you exactly why. I tried a few galleries a while ago, and many years ago now. I put together a body of work, as they say you're supposed to do, 5 or 6 paintings, and I contacted a load of galleries in London because I was living near London there. I got replies back from about half of them, and they all said, no, we're not taking on any new artists at the moment. It was just at the start of the recession, and everything was pretty much, people were being very cautious, you know. So there was that, but there was also the fact that for me, I value my independence too much. I just don't like the idea of giving a gallery half of what I earn from a painting. You know, I just don't like that idea, because the problem for me is that the gallery, they don't care if they sell my work or if they sell someone else's work. They still get paid. I only get paid if they sell my work. So they're not really, it's not a very symbiotic relationship, you know. They're not really motivated to sell my work in particular. As long as they've got someone whose work is selling, then they don't really mind. So that's why I went with auctions instead of going through like the gallery route. I guess I could put them up on my site for a fixed price. Have I ever done that? No, I think I auction them all. I think what I like about it as well is that if it's a bigger painting, I usually put a higher reserve price. What I like about it is it's democracy. And it's like a meritocracy, you know. The painting will find its own level. I've had paintings that I put up for $100 that have gone for almost $500. I've had some that didn't sell at all, you know. And I kind of like that, you know, if enough people are interested in a painting, that will be reflected in the price that it gets eventually. So I guess really I hope that answers the question. That's why I went with auctions. How big an email list or audience would you need before it would be viable? How big an email list or an audience would you need before it would be viable to do auctions on your site? Frankly, that's an impossible question to answer. The reason is, as I was saying right at the beginning, the important thing is not the number of people that you have on your email list, it's the quality of the connections. Now, I can tell you my email list, I have just over 9,000 people. I think Julian Merrow Smith's is something similar to that, but you don't need that many. And I checked the other day, there's a little function in ConvertKit that lets you check how many of your subscribers are what they call cold subscribers, so they haven't opened an email from you in like 6 months or something like that. And it was about half my list. You know, so I should probably, my list is probably, of people who actually engage with the stuff that I send out, is probably way smaller than that. It's probably about 4,000 or 5,000 people. But my list was much smaller than that when I first started auctioning them. I think it was about 2,000 people, something like that. But again, it doesn't matter how big the list is. What matters is how many of those people you have a meaningful relationship with. All of the people that buy my work are painters. They're people like you. I bought Julian Merrow Smith's work. You know, I'm a painter. I even sell online, you know. Part of what I do is the same as what he does. I bought his paintings too, you know. That's one of the things I love about this kind of business model, is that the paintings, the work is all bought by other people who are painters at some level of development. It just means that, as I said before, the paintings find their own level based on how interesting people think they are. So yeah, you do need to build an audience. How big it is, I think, is less important than how engaged it is, in terms of how meaningful the connections are that you've built with people. And the way to do that is to share of yourself, your artistic struggles, your personal struggles, what goes into making a painting for you, putting out stuff that will hopefully help people to learn. That's the stuff that really makes the difference, I think. Deborah says, do you consider your personal contacts part of your email list for business purposes? I have no division between the two, none. So if you follow me on Facebook, sometimes I put personal stuff up, but I put personal stuff up out to my email list. I put personal stuff up on my website. I don't make any division at all. To me, they're all just people that I have connections with. Some of them will buy stuff from me, some of them will learn from me, and some of them might just watch and I might never interact with at all. All of those things are fine to me. I think that's another thing which is different about this way of doing business, if you like, is that it's more natural to just to be yourself and to make connections with people. So I don't know if I'm really answering your question there, Deborah, but my personal contacts, yes, they are, because they're all the same thing. You know, I mean, I'm a personal contact of Julian's, but I've also bought his work. You know, so I bought 2 of his paintings, and I bought quite a few of his prints. You know, I mean, because they're beautiful, right? Who would not want a piece of his work? So yeah, I don't differentiate between them. Why use? Oh, hang on, Shelley, have you found? Oh, sorry, I'm going too fast. Patty, can I use Blogger for auctions? No, not as far as I know. Your functionality will be really limited there. If you're on Blogger or Blogspot or Wix or anything like that, you're limited, or WordPress.com, you're limited to what they give you. You have to have your own site and be able to plug in your own stuff, with the exception possibly of Shopify. Someone emailed me earlier on to say you can get an auction on there. Have you found a difference in timing? Are you putting up an image on a weekend or time of day? I used to worry about stuff like that, but every time I've tried to build a theory and act on it, it's gone to pot, you know. There doesn't seem to be that much of a pattern. So the way I approach it is I paint the stuff that I love to paint, and I hope that other people like it too. And I put it up whenever I put it up, pretty much, you know. How do you manage different currencies? Well, in the auction itself, you just set what currency you want to be paid in, and then the way that you get paid. Oh, actually, I should have done that. What happens is, when the auction finishes, that software automatically sends an email to someone with a link to my PayPal account, and they can then pay just by paying that link. So that's all handled by PayPal. They do take quite a hefty cut, but it's just so easy. It's such a good service, you know. I think it's fine to use. And why do I use dollars? I use dollars because the vast majority of the people who follow me are in America. I have people from all over the world who I've been in contact with, but the vast majority of people, I would say probably 3/4, maybe more, are in America. So that's why I sell in dollars, to make it easier for them. Judy, you buy other people's paintings too. I know you've got one of mine. Here, look here. Well, you haven't got it yet, because I've still got it. But you will be getting it soon. It's going to be the only one I think that I'll be able to personally present to you. Have you ever tried auctioning larger works, or do you think it's mainly viable for small paintings? Jean, excellent question. I have tried with some larger ones, and they've been successful. The most I've sold a painting for online so far is, I think it was about $1,150, and that was a slightly larger piece. It was that one I showed you earlier on of the apples that was on the email. I don't know what the ceiling is, but if that had been a gallery and I'd got that much from painting, then that painting would have sold for $2,500, because you've got to factor in the price of the frame as well. Because don't forget, you pay for the framing, but the gallery takes half of that too. That makes no sense to me. Yes, I think you can. I think probably smaller ones generally do better, but I don't know. I mean, I've recently decided that I want to start painting some bigger pieces just because I want to paint them. So ask me again in 6 months. But I would say yes, you can sell some that are a bit bigger and take longer. And also, Julian does it too. Every now and again, he'll put out a painting for about $1,500 or something like that as a fixed price, and they always sell, you know. So yes, you can. I'm going to have to come up here to a different page and scroll. The questions are coming in really fast. This is brilliant, by the way. Thank you for asking all these questions. It makes it really a lot more a lot more, I can do something much more informative. I'm quite happy to stand here for the rest of the night answering your questions. I've got some stuff I want to show you, but just keep the questions coming. Sharon, how do you handle shipping? Do you include that in the price of the work, or is it separate? For me, I just include it in the price. I always say just free shipping. For a small one, like that one I just showed you, Judy's painting of the apples, if I sent that, I sent one today and it cost me about £10 to send. If someone's going to spend $200 on a painting of mine, the least I can do is send it to them for free. I pack them up very carefully. Again, in Threads, I'll have a video tutorial on how to pack them up, because I've done a lot of trial and error. Now I use glassine to protect them first, which is a conservator's paper, a bit like waxproof paper, and then bubble wrap, and then a package on top of that. So yeah, I send them out for free. I think it would be churlish to ask people to pay for the postage once they've already spent all that money on a painting. For those of us who already have websites, can you talk about the process for switching them? Also, the company that handles my website handles my domain name, though I own it. It seems complicated to switch all of these things. Any thoughts on that? If you're with a host, check if they already do WordPress installations, because most of them do now. And if they do allow you to do a WordPress installation, it's often a single click, and then you're set up, and then you can just point your domain name to that site. That is the simplest way to do it, and then you don't have to move anything. It's fine to have, as long as it's a reputable company, it's fine to have your domain name and your site with the same company. So just find out if they do WordPress installations. If they don't, I'd be really shocked, because everybody wants WordPress sites these days. So that's how I would handle that. Do you run your auctions for 24 hours? How long do I run them for usually? Oh, I've done a few different ones. Sometimes I do 2 or 3 days. I just do it on a whim, to be honest with you. The nice thing about this software is you can have multiple ones running at once. So if you paint every day, which obviously I don't, I mean, I do paint every day, but I don't produce a finished piece of work every day. It'd take me longer than that. You could have multiple ones running. When Julian showed me the software that he runs on his site, he can only have one at a time. So he has to, and he paints a finished piece every day to sell, pretty much. He's been a bit quiet since Christmas, because I think he's having a break. But you know, for him, yeah, he can only run them for 24 hours, because then the next one's got to come up. Usually I do them for 2 or 3 days, something like that. Deborah, personal email list. This is, say you send an auction email to Aunt Sally, who is not one of your subscribers, Followers Act, and she objects. Would you not send an email to Aunt Sally unless she's, yes, I would only ever send an email to subscribers. I never, ever add anyone to my list unless they've added, they have to, unless they've emailed me and said, can you add me to your list? That happens very rarely, almost entirely. It's because someone has added themselves to my list. Now, this is probably, is this a good time to do this? I'm going to get to those other questions in a minute, because this is really key, all right? A difference in the way I do this than the way that people like Dwayne Keyser and Julian do it. Let me see if I can show you this. Right. I do put out my paintings. I post them on Facebook. So someone could be, and Instagram when I remember. So someone could be a Facebook follower or an Instagram follower and not be on my subscriber list, okay? And then they could see the blog post about the painting and then click through and come and read the blog post. And what they'll see when they get to my site is this. And on every page on my site, over on the corner here, is this thing that I give away for free. It's basically a free colour course. And because I've produced quite a bit of video on colour over the years, you probably know it's kind of a specialty of mine. I give away this course for free. I mean, I've made it as useful as I possibly can. And I give it away for free, and all people have to do to get it is to give me their email address so I can send them the emails with the links to the videos, okay? So I'm actively building my list here by giving people something for free, all right? Let's have a look at, say, Julian's site. This is the homepage of Julian's site, so it shows his latest painting, okay? Very, very different approach, because if you want to join Julian's email list, you have to click this subscribe button here. And that will take you through to the form to subscribe. Now, as I was saying to you before, I think, I'm not 100% sure, but I think Julian's email list is roughly the same size as mine. But he's been going for a lot longer than me, and he's way better known than me. But this is not a particularly, unless you really you want to see these paintings every day in your inbox, this is not a very compelling offer. And it's also kind of a little bit hidden away. You have to find it. Whereas here, this is always on my site, and I'm saying, look, you know, here's some really useful stuff I will give you for free. And the real opportunity with what I'm doing there is that it's building a relationship, you know, because the chances are if someone downloads that, they'll email me. And if I'm not too snowed under, I'll reply and I'll email them back. Often people email me with questions who have got that little free mini course, and we'll start a conversation. And then I remember who they are, you know. That's what I mean by meaningful connections. And that's why, even though I don't have massive follower accounts on social media, and why I'm not one of the famous painting a day people, I'm just an ordinary person doing my paintings. That's why I have a big email list, because I give people something in return for their email address. And then I actively will try to build a connection with them. I can't pretend to answer all of the email that I get. I really wish I could say that, but I get too much, and I start answering them, and you know, generally I default to trying to do quality over quantity. So I try to answer each email completely, and inevitably there are ones I miss. I don't get to them all, but I do try to get to them all that way. But that gives you, you know, a good idea. Let me show you as well something else I think would be interesting for you to see. Let's look at the emails that Julian and Dwayne send out. Okay, I think this is very instructive. So this is, if you are subscribed to Dwayne Keys' list, he will send you out this email here, an email something like this, and you'll be able to see the latest bits of the book. Look at these gorgeous paintings, such a good painter. But look at all this, he has all of these links. Mine are really, really simple. I just link you through to my blog post. He has all of these links, you know, that where you can get through to his site. Similarly to Julian, he produces these beautifully crafted emails, you know. These are excellent, I think, you know, really, I could learn a lot from the way, we could all learn a lot from the way Julian puts these brilliant emails together. Whereas mine are just like, you know, they're as simple as you like, really. I do, like I showed you, I send out, oh, I didn't mean to do that, sorry. I just closed the window, so I won't bother going back to it. But mine are fairly simple. They're a lot simpler than that. But still, hopefully that makes the point that the way that I'm contacting people, my default is to try to be helping someone with something. And the reason I do it that way is because that's how my site started. When I started it about 10, 12 years ago, I was just sharing what I learned along the way. I didn't actually expect anyone to be interested. And it surprised me that actually people were. And out there are hundreds of thousands of people, some of whom have joined my email list, who have similar struggles to me. Those are the people that I would get in touch with. And those are the people, funny enough, a small subset of those that will buy my paintings. And that's what I recommend that you do. Because especially in the crowded, kind of noisy online marketplace that we have now, it's the best way to get noticed is to build a meaningful connection with somebody. Let's get back to some of these questions. Do you have paintings back for varnishing? No, I don't. Actually, that's a really good question as well. What I need to do is I've been meaning to do this for ages, is to put together a video demonstration on varnishing that I can send to people. I hope that people who buy them because they're painters themselves will be able to handle that side of things. But it does make a huge difference to how good the painting looks. It's been on my to-do list forever. Make a video on how to varnish your paintings, you know. I'll have to get around to it one day. What about sales tax and VAT? Does the plugin handle that? No, it doesn't. You have to handle all of that yourself with your, you know, when you do your books and everything. You don't frame the auctioned pieces, do you? No, no. I mean, that would add so much expense, and also framing is a very personal thing. They go out just as they are, just as, you know, as the panels. I remember Julian started right near the beginning, before he started auctioning his pieces, he used to sell them for $100 each, just as a flat price, before he got really well known. And he had an offer there for doing them with frames, which I assume that people didn't really take him up on because he doesn't do it now. How long did it take you to build your list? Good question. I've been doing it, it's kind of hard to answer because, I mean, a few years. I started off, I think I just had my email address on my site. And then after maybe, I don't know, a few months, a year or something, people just started emailing me and saying, I struggle with that too, that thing that you were talking about when you were trying to draw heads, you know, that you posted about the other day. And so then I just put a little note and said, click here if you want to be added to my email list. And I started doing it as just a little distribution list in Outlook. And then I think I got to about 500 people, and it got so difficult. It took so long to send an email out individually to every one of those people when I put a blog post up. Then I got MailChimp, and then eventually I moved from MailChimp to ConvertKit. In the beginning, I wasn't really trying to build my list. Now I have it down to a fine art. Every time I send an email out, I lose 20 subscribers. So I have to grow faster than that. In order for my email list to keep growing, which obviously is something that you want to do. You want to be constantly reaching a bigger audience. One, because obviously it's good for your business. And two, because the way I look at it is the more people that I help, the more reason I have for taking up this amount of space in the world, the more reason I have for being here. You know, this is what I'm here for. Well, that and adopting and raising my 2 kids. But that's why I'm here, you know. So the more people that I can reach with this stuff, the happier I am. How do you make an email list into subscribers? They are subscribers. As soon as they fill in the form, then they're added to your email list. They're added to the database on your email list provider. Use MailChimp. Really good, and it's free to start with. How did you get so all right about being seen? Do you think it would work with a pseudonym? No, I don't. I think you have to be authentic, and you have to be upfront with people, and you have to be comfortable with sharing of yourself. I share almost anything now, but it's taken me a little while to get here, and I've done it gradually, bit by bit. There were times when a long time ago, when I'd be close to putting up a blog post about something I really struggled with, and I would thinking, I don't think I can share this, and sometimes I didn't. But what I found is, when you do share something personal about your struggles, the response you get is so amazing. I've never had any negative responses, always positive ones. And you just have this feeling that you're doing something so meaningful. For me, it's like the reason that I get out of bed and come in here every day, apart from because I love to paint, is because, I mean, this might sound like hubris, but I know I'm making a difference out there, and that means a lot to me, you know. So you get used to it gradually over time. I think a pseudonym wouldn't work. That makes me really uncomfortable. Yeah, it's like you're not being honest with the people that follow you, you know. Maybe you can. I don't know. It wouldn't feel right to me. Is it possible to combine online auctions with gallery sales, or will gallerists be resistant to this? I can't tell you because I don't have any galleries. Actually, it's not true. I have been with 2 online galleries. No, one offline gallery and 1 online gallery. The offline gallery that I was with sadly closed not long ago, and they were absolutely lovely. The people that ran it were friends. Funnily enough, found me through my website. I did sell some pieces of work for me. They were based in Denmark. And they didn't have a problem with it at all. They were like, no, yeah, you can sell your work, I don't mind. I was already auctioning my work online anyway. So I'd do some to give to them, and they would sell them. A couple of times they just bought ones of mine on the auctions because they thought they would sell in the gallery, you know. But it depends. I mean, I think that's a case-by-case basis. Depends on the gallery. Some of them, I can imagine, would be quite snotty about it, you know. Do you use retouch? No, never. I do not like it. I think it weakens the paint film. The only mediums I use these days are oil-based. I use Oleo Gel from Natural Pigments and Dave Corcoran's Fumed Silica medium. They're basically almost the same thing. Do you paint on panels because of personal choice or because they ship easier? Because they ship easier. They're very light and the surface is all right. I use the ampersand ones, you know, and they're all right. And also, I always paint on panels anyway because they're dimensionally stable, so I don't paint on stretched canvas ever. What I do by preference is to make little panels and then I stretch canvas over them, so then the canvas won't move, because I love the texture of canvas. Oil primed canvas is beautiful to paint on, but it takes so long to prepare a panel that way. So yeah, it's mostly pragmatism. Have you used any other auction problems like WooCommerce? No, I haven't. When I set up mine, I did a bunch of checks for other things that were available, and none of them. I did check some then. I checked out a couple out. I can't remember if I tried WooCommerce out or not, because I think, don't you have to buy the whole WooCommerce suite to get the auctions? I think you do. And I didn't like that idea. The one that I've got now was like a one-off payment for use of the software, and it was next to nothing, and it worked. So I stuck with this. But it would probably work. Yeah, oil out, don't retouch. How long does oiling out take to dry? I take it that's not really a question for me. I'm not really going to go into too much technical stuff about painting at the moment. We can another time. But it depends how you do it. When I use, mostly at the moment, I've been using Dave Corcoran's medium, and it dries overnight. Yeah, I used to use Marager. I used to use Old Masters Marager, and I've gone off it now, because if you use too much, it almost never dries. And I found better things that are just oil. I don't like the idea of using lead and all that kind of stuff in my paint film now. Keep it as simple as you possibly can, and I can get better results than that Old Masters Marager with either Natural Pigments Oleo Gel or Dave Corcoran's mediums. If you look up Dave Corcoran, C-O-R, I'll put his name in the chat because his mediums are so nice. He's really worth checking out. Would you consider painting other genres, or can you not use Munsell? Yeah, you can use Munsell for anything. It's just colour. It's just a way of organising colour. Yeah, landscape. In the summer, I went over to visit Julian, and I did a couple of plein airs with him. It was incredibly hard because you got to paint so fast. And I'm a slow painter, but it was exhilarating. I really enjoyed it. I've done a bit of landscape here, but I don't feel that I'm at a point with it now where I feel confident enough to be going out and auctioning those pieces. I'm still very much I like that to be a kind of a sandbox at the moment that I can play with and kind of find my voice with, if you like. Maybe soon I will. So hang on, I think I've got to the end of the questions for now. I've shown you the plugin, I've shown you the auctions, I've shown you the emails. I think we're pretty much covered. That's all the stuff that I wanted to show you. So if there's anything else that you really want to ask me, now's the time. I mean, I'll start to wrap up now. I will be sending out a link to the replay, probably tomorrow, because it's pretty late here now, and my tummy's rumbling and I'm wanting my dinner. So tomorrow I'll send out a link to the replay, which will be recorded on YouTube. How long did we go on for? I don't know. Well, about an hour. Not too bad. Usually I overrun because I'm not painting. I've done these up to 2 hours before when I've been painting. I just forgot the cameras are on. Just gassing like this is not so bad. So yeah, I'll send out a link to the replay tomorrow. I'll include some stuff about threads as well, because that's the big thing that's coming up for me this month. The Artist Network that I'm launching on the 30th, where I'm going really into depth on all of this stuff. Hopefully that was useful. If you have any more questions about any of it, and indeed about anything at all, just hit reply. Ask me whatever the question is, and I'll get back to you over the next few days. I'm extremely busy at the moment, I'm afraid, so I might be a little bit slow. But yeah, get back to me. Did you use Munsell with the plein air? No, I didn't use a Munsell with it, because the way that I use it in the studio wouldn't work. Because if you hold a Munsell chip up against the sky, it's going to be in shadow, right? Unless the light is behind you. And quite often I was painting into the light, contre jour. So no, I couldn't do it. But all of the knowledge that I've learned from using Munsell, it just came out in what I was doing, and it made so much difference. It made it much easier than it would have been, I think. Where can you get extra chips for the Montel chart? Mine was stuck together. Oh, I'm sorry. Is that the student book? You got edition 4, didn't you? I'm so sorry. Edition 4 has a lot of problems. The one you want is edition 2, 3, or 5, and I think they might be up to 6 now. You've just got to get another one. I'm sorry. They had a real problem, and they totally should have taken those off the shelves. That they're still out there in circulation is outrageous because they're not fit for purpose at all. I'm afraid you'll just have to find another one. Probably best to go for the newest one because as far as I know, from what I've heard from people on my colour course, edition 5 at least is okay. The chips don't stick together in that one. I'm sorry. Okay. Yeah, I know. I know. It's so annoying. One of these days, I'm seriously thinking about investing at some point in a big industrial printer and just printing them myself because it's so difficult and I can't. It's so expensive to. The expense of the Munsell Big Book is the barrier, but it's so useful, this stuff. Anyway, don't get me started on Munsell. I'll rabbit on for the rest of the night. You want edition 5. Munsell Student Colour Set, edition 5 or higher. Edition 3 is all right if you can find that second hand. Edition 2 is all right if you can find that second hand. Don't get 4. Edition 4 has a problem with the printing of the chips and they come stuck together. Okay. I think that was about all I wanted to cover, really. Yeah, so the last thing I was going to say is it's Wednesday today, right? Next Wednesday, which is the 30th, I'm doing a webinar just on the stuff that it's connected to everything that I was talking about today, and it's just on how to build an email list. It's really how to build an audience, and to make connections with those people. That is the core of this whole thing. It's the engine that makes it work. Without that, you don't really have a business, with the caveat that I was saying before, that my personal life bleeds into my business and I don't really make any division between it anymore. This is just the stuff that I love to do. I get to do it every day. I get to interact with wonderful people who are trying to do the same kind of thing as I am. It's like I couldn't wish for better, really. So it's really close to. I don't have a firewall between the two. They just bleed one into the other these days. So next Wednesday I'm doing a webinar on that. To get to that webinar, you'll need to be on to register your interest in Threads, because that webinar I'm doing just for people who have said that they're interested in signing up for Threads. Threads in a nutshell. You probably already know if you've been following my blog, but just in case you don't, I'll put a little bit in the email, the replay email about it. It's a new program that I'm starting at the end of this month, which is going to be one part painting skills and one part online business, or how you make those two things work together in order to be able to make some income online, to become an independent artist online. That's what Threads is, and I'm going to be streaming live, kind of like this, twice a month, and there'll be one on some aspect of online business like this one today, going right in depth, a bit more than I did today on very specific things, and then one will be on painting stuff. But yeah, so I'll send out a link if you want to register for that and just express your interest. Doesn't mean you've signed up or anything like that, but then you'll get the link for the webinar next week, which is going to be about building an audience online, the really kind of crucial bit. Okay, so I think we're pretty much done. I'll just check the comments just quickly. Yeah, you always need to sign up for the webinars, just so that I know you've signed up, so I can send you the replay and stuff like that, So yeah, I'll send out a link to that as well. You're very welcome. You're very welcome. I hope it was useful. I hope you learned something. As I say, if you've got any questions about it, give me a shout. Just reply to the email that I'll be sending out tomorrow, and ask away, and we'll take it from there. I'm going to sign off now, but the chat still, it's obviously still, it's still going on in the chat, people talking about the monster books. There's no reason for you to stop. If you want to carry on talking about that, the chat will still run, okay? The chat doesn't shut off just because the stream does. But thanks very much for coming. I hope it was informative, and I'll see you again soon.